Hello and welcome to the Irish Aesthete. Previously, I was discussing the unhappy fate of Waterstown, County Westmeath, a house believed to have been designed by Richard Castle. Today I want to talk about another Richard Castle house, one which has fared rather better. In 1976, the late Maurice Craig wrote of Ledwithstown, County Longford, "There can be few houses of its size in Ireland more thoroughly designed and with internal decoration so well integrated." Thought to date from the second half of the 1740s, in other words, just a few years before Richard Castle's death in 1751, the house is reached at the end of a very long straight avenue. Ledwithstown is of 3 bays and 2 stories over a semi-raised basement. The main entrance is approached by a flight of stone steps, the supporting walls splaying out to create the impression of a ceremonial entrance to the south-facing door. This is a splendid stone-cut tripartite Tuscan design incorporating tetra-style pilasters resting on a rusticated base and surmounted by a carved pediment. Ledwithstown is fascinating because it's a country house in miniature. The building measures just 48 by 47 feet, and yet, beginning with that very grand entrance, inside you find everything that you would in a much larger house. Passing into the building, the visitor enters a hallway off which open a succession of reception rooms. Here is the drawing room which, as is ever the case in a decent country house, takes up the greatest amount of space to the rear of the building. It has wonderful plaster-panelled walls that feature a variety of decorative motifs. These include garlands of flowers running above the door cases, and also woven baskets laden with a mixture of fruit and flowers. And finally, there's that favourite motif of 18th century Ireland, the scallop shell. Of course, it's most usually seen on the apron of mahogany tables, but here it makes an appearance in the plasterwork. Naturally, as with a proper country house, Ledwithstown has 2 staircases. One of limestone, which runs from basement to upper floor and would have been used by the servants, and the second of mahogany, which only members of the owner's family and their guests would have used. Naturally, the staircase hall is well lit by a large arched window on the return. Up on the bedroom floor, the rooms once more retain much of their 18th century decoration, including panelling. And that's true even in some of the bedrooms, such as this one, which features an original chimney piece made from that particular form of Irish limestone known as Kilkenny marble. And note here too the use once more of the scallop shell motif. Inevitably, as was the case in Gloucester, County Offaly, which we visited recently, there are, shall we say, flaws in the workmanship. This is often the case with provincial craftsmen when they're left to interpret an architect's designs. We can see it here, for example, with this door case. Look at the way that it simply has to run into the wall because there's not enough room to accommodate the full frame. On the other hand, look at this window, the thickness of the glazing bars, the depth of the splayed embrasure, in order to ensure as much light as possible entered the room. We know relatively little about the history of Ledwithstown and its original family, the Ledwiths. But in 1911, the property was bought by a local farmer, Lawrence Feeney. Unfortunately, a few years later, he died, and the house was then let to a succession of tenants, none of whom behaved terribly well, it would appear. There was a brother and sister, for example, who removed all the door handles, and then another family of tenants who let the chimneys all become blocked and then knocked holes in the walls so that the smoke could escape. In 1976, Maurice Craig described Ledwithstown as being, unhappily, in an advanced state of dilapidation, perhaps not beyond recovery. And 2 years later, Mark Bence-Jones went further when he wrote that the place was now derelict. However, it was around this time that the original Lawrence Feeney's grandson, likewise called Lawrence, married, and he and his wife Mary embarked on the restoration of Ledwithstown, with assistance later coming from the Irish Georgian Society and a number of other sources. Today, Ledwithstown is a very happy and thriving family home, just as it was always intended to be, and it serves as a tribute to the hard work and devotion of the wonderful Feeneys. And of course, to the genius of Richard Castle, which it has been my pleasure to share with you. As always, thank you so much for watching the Irish Aesthete, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. In the meantime, stay safe everyone, and goodbye.